Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 39 of Be With Me in the book of 2 Corinthians. Today we're going to learn about the not so super apostles. So Paul calls them super apostles in a mocking way, and we're going to find out. I'll give you the conclusion now. They're not so super and they're not so apostle. Listen in here. This is chapter 11 of 2 Corinthians. I'm going to start with verse 1. I wish you would bear with me a little foolishness. Do bear with me. For I feel a divine jealousy for you, since I betrothed you to one husband to present you as a pure virgin in Christ. But I'm afraid that, as the serpent deceived Eve by his cunning, your thoughts will be led astray from a sincere and pure devotion to Christ. For if someone comes and proclaims another Jesus than the one we proclaimed, or if you receive a different spirit from the one you received, or if you accept a different gospel from the one you accepted, you put up with it readily enough. Indeed, I consider that I am not in the least inferior to these, here it is, super apostles, and I'm putting that in air quotes. And let me skip down to verse 12. And what will I continue to do in order to undermine the claim of those who would claim that in their boasted mission they work on the same terms we do? For such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. It is no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds. All right, so let's kind of make a list of the super apostles. So they are disguised, verse 13, as apostles of Christ, as opposed to being true apostles. Verse 15, they are servants of Satan, disguised as servants of righteousness, that is, servants of Christ. They are described as false apostles, not true apostles. They are described as deceitful workmen, that is, made up, dressed up as something that they are not. They boast in their mission. They claim that they're the same as we are. You know, they're saying, hey, we serve the same God, or we're all in the family of God, or all road leads to heaven, when they're not. They, in another chapter, chapter 2, verse 17, they're described as peddlers, kind of in it for their profit, where Paul is describing himself a little later on here as doing this for free. They are described as proclaiming Jesus, but really it's a different Jesus. And this is the Jesus that we've been waiting for, a different spirit. Wait a minute, we've been waiting for the Spirit to indwell us and a different gospel. My question is, hey, what's plan B? What is a different gospel? So verse 5, Paul calls these people super apostles. They kind of look good, they sound good, but on further inspection, they're not so super, and they're certainly not apostles. Paul is contrasted as being relatively unskilled in speaking, but what he describes himself as actually in plain speaker. So these guys are described. So the conclusion is that the super apostles are not very super and they're not very apostle. And worse, they actually have a disguisedness to them. So Paul is accusing the Corinthians of making the same mistake that Eve made. So when we read the story of Adam and Eve, we say, man, Eve, what a knucklehead, I would never do that. And yet the Corinthians are falling into it. They have been deceived, that is, cheated or swindled, led astray. The word I like is they have been beguiled by this disguise. And the disguising is this changing form. So they're disguising themselves in a different form. They've transformed themselves. So this disguise as a super apostle is just that. It is a disguise. So they're not apostles. They're false apostles. They're not servants of righteousness. They're servants of, get this, Satan. Yikes. They're not angels of light. They're like Satan. they're not workmen, they're deceitful workmen. They're hiding as something. They're not Jesus proclaiming, they're proclaiming another Jesus. They're not spirit indwelling. They have some sort of a different spirit with a small s. And they're not gospel proclaimers. They're proclaiming a different gospel. So they have disguised themselves. They've transformed themselves into something to cheat and beguile real believers, and doing the same thing that Eve did. So, like the serpent in the Garden of Eden is deceiving Eve, these super apostles are doing the same things. So let's conclusions are, let's not be prideful. Paul is saying the same thing that happened in the Garden of Eden is happening to the Corinthians. And somehow these false apostles, these super apostles, have made themselves winsome enough, attractive enough to deceive people, to beguile people. So let's stick to the true Jesus. Let's stick to the true gospel. Let's stick to the true Spirit of God, not a gospel of my own making, not a gospel that I prefer. Let's have it be plain. Let's have it be pure, as Paul says, and let's have our teachers be of good motivation. So in conclusion, Paul has been waiting to sort of condemn these guys for the whole book of 2 Corinthians. He's been hinting at it, and now he calls them super apostles. But we find out that they're not super. They're deceitful, and they're disguising themselves. They've beguiled the Corinthians. And they're not apostles at all. They're preaching another gospel, another Jesus, and giving some sort of another spirit with a small s, not the capital S. So let's not be beguiled. Let's not be deceived. Let's not go for the disguise. Let's stick to the pure motivation and the plain speaking of Paul and the gospel. The super apostles ain't so super after all.